guys, Infidel 1258 here. Tonight we're going to get into a continuation of our modern must-have monster cards. We're gonna cover the rare cards tonight. We've already covered legendary and epic, and now we're doing rare. We're gonna go splinter by splinter, and we're gonna analyze both price and value. So sometimes I'm gonna recommend an expensive card because it's so good it's worth it, and sometimes I'm not gonna recommend super cheap cards because I just don't think the value is there. And so we'll get into that more as we go through Splinter by Splinter. But before we do, my name is Dwayne Cunningham, and I cover Splinterlands all day, every day on the channel because it's changed my life, and I think it could change yours. Here we go. So, rare, we're dealing reward, untamed, dice, and chaos. And remember, from the reward cards, we're looking at just these cards that are either Chaos Legion or those of the reward cards that have this where's one? Here's one. The fractured frame. That's reward. That's modern. Naga Fire Wizard is excluded. Let's get in. Okay. So I'm looking first and foremost at my cheapies and seeing whether something pops out and is feels like an absolute must-have. The Scavo Firebolt is in the conversation. In my mind, I'm right now. I'm doing this off the top of my head, and so I'm kind of going through line by line. I'm going to say, okay, Scavo Firebolt has to be in the conversation. Why? Because at 4 mana cost, it's dropping a 4 archery damage at even level 7, which is really, really high for archery and for the mana cost. So this is one of those cards that's going to be really helpful. In low mana matches, it's going to be really helpful. Even in those battles where monsters lose their abilities. Usually you look for magic in those rule sets, but in this content, or for this mana cost, a 4 DPS is like a 4 damage output monster is definitely a high interest target. And then knockout actually doubles that, assuming you have stun, and fire happens to have a lot of stun. So Scavo Firebolt is a really great card with an exceptional price and is definitely in contention for a must-have fire card. Keep going. Molten Ash. I don't love this, but it is strong. It's probably in the conversation, but it's got all the things. It should be right there for me. Like I like the Wave Brood. I like other taunt monsters. I like these long range taunts that I can throw in the back line. Oh, this doesn't have taunt. My bad. I thought it did. I thought it had close range and taunt. Okay, so that pulls me back because I was thinking it had taunt and that therefore it justified. It is fine, I guess. You know what I mean? It's fine, but this close range to me feels pretty irrelevant. The likelihood that I'm going to buy this and play it in the first position with this speed and this low archery damage and no shield, no void. I don't really see me doing that. So it's kind of like maybe I would buy it and I'd throw it in the back line for a sneak attack defender. But I feel that's kind of niche. It depends on how much mana you've got. It depends on, the rule set. It depends on how, whether it's reverse speed. So I'm kind of passing on that, especially now that I recognize it doesn't have the taunt. Penny Striker is an excellent sneak attack monster. And the backfire, I really like that. Of course, it's got great speed. Speed is so important, and huge DPS with the 5 melee damage at the highest level. Great card. Not too expensive either. Definitely, I guess, in consideration. I skipped over Jinn Apprentice and Exploding Rats, not because they're bad, but just because I don't love them. I mean, 5 mana cost for this much magic damage is really, really impressive, particularly in certain rule sets where, like Equalizer, where everybody gets the same number of hit points. Then you're going to want a card like this. Deathblow is really great too, but it's kind of niche because you can't predict when your opponent's going to play one monster, and therefore you don't know how Deathblow is going to help you. You can't possibly predict that your opponent is going to drop one monster. I mean, sometimes maybe you can, but it's not regularly reliable. I don't really get the utility of a Deathblow. Like, let's say you beat my team all the way down to 1, and then you're already probably going to win if you've got most of your team left. Deathblow feels like it just makes you win more. That's kind of an ability I don't love. Yes, it would be a counter to, like, for instance, a Kron, or a llama last stand, but I don't know. I mean, it's so vulnerable with the 5 hit points. So it's just a maybe, but then the price makes it interesting. I guess I would say on pretty much across the board, any of the cards that are less than 50 cents is probably a buy. But that's not what we're talking about. We're not just saying like let's get cheap. We're saying like what are the must-have cards, and I think Scavo's in the conversation. And from the second row, I'm gonna say a card that I play almost every single match is the Spark Pixies. Yes, it's kind of more expensive. You're talking 300 and probably $50 to get a max copy. But all you really need is this one right here, level 40, 43. You need 40. You're gonna get that stun. You have the flying. It's only 2 damage, but that stun with this speed of 6 speed is so fast. Almost every card in the game is if you bring any sort of speed manipulation, like a creeping ooze or something that gives you a bit more swiftness, you're going to be the first fire. You're going to be the first action on the battlefield. That's going to give you a 50% chance that you stun your opponent. That's super huge when you want to control things like knockout with the Scavo Firebolt. So to me, this is definitely my favorite from this row. Actually, I got regular. So Spark Pixies, Scavo Firebolt, and then these are going to work in conjunction, obviously, with a Jotun, which is nice too for the fire Jotun there. Fire is probably in contention because speed is so important. And as an untamed summoner, you are going to get a level 1, but what about if you wanted to climb that and make it higher? Look at this guy here, 350 for a top level summoner. Just so happens that this cost right now is actually really, really reasonable for the marketplace. You look at even Quid is more expensive. Quid is coming in at 410 and Fire is selling for 350. So there you go. Great monster, great price, very powerful in the sense, very helpful is what I mean to say. And if you're seeking a high level summoner, that's one to consider. I might like this better. I use Pyre as my main, but I also have Arsa, and I switch between them at different times for different reasons. And I like having that usefulness, that versatility. But Pyre has been my main for a long time, and it's the reason why I understood when Kitty came out how powerful it would be, because its speed is absolutely a game changer. Nevertheless, right now I'm Scavo Firebolt, Pixies, and I'm just mentioning Pyre and Tenyi as like interesting additions. Fire Elemental is another fast archery monster with the fire team, again with the low hit points like the Spark Pixies and even the Scavo Firebolt. The Elemental has blast damage in just naturally, which is really, really great for those of us who don't have Jotun. Affliction is of course powerful. Redemption is nice. I mean, not a huge deal, but it's nice. This is an expensive card though. I mean, when you get up all that way up there, you're going to be talking, it's not even really that much. I mean, $150. $150 probably. Not nothing, of course, but I do use this quite a bit. Sometimes I'll do a blast play with my fire team, and I'll do Fire Elemental. I'll do the Exploding Dwarf. I'll do, I guess, no, I'd have to change my whole. I was going to try and show you quickly, but I have to open up all my filters. I don't want to do that. So, Exploding Dwarf has blast. Fire Elemental has blast. Elemental Phoenix, I think it's called, has blast. That right there can be 3 different monsters that you throw out there that have blast damage just naturally, and it can be quite devastating because you end up damaging or even killing the first 2 monsters in like, let's say, the first 2-3 hits. Okay, so special consideration. Efreet Elder is great too with the last stand rated at the lowest levels, and if you get it up in here, can actually be very powerful, and adding the phase and the speed from Pyre can make it even more evasive. Works well with Kitty also. Karsa, of course, great. Phineas Rage. I like this card a lot. This is another card I play almost every time I can. This is like, when I think fire, I usually think strong melee main tank, secondary melee main tank, which is this guy, and then I'll do an archery, like a 4 archery in the back line. Is usually what I'll do. And this guy, I play him a lot, and he wins a lot. The oppress is great. The speed is great. The speed is what I'm usually focusing on with fire, and we get 5-6 speed out of everybody. And we usually delete before my opponent has a chance to strike back, unless they mirror me or improve on what I've done by throwing down a kitty. And so Phineas is probably from this line. Beetle Queen is an old reward card, so very good though. With the Inspire and the Tank Heal, exceptional card, but that's an old reward. Okay, so Living Lava, interesting maybe as a niche opportunity when there's reverse speed. This is a good card. It's got Shield and Rust and Thorns. It's a good card. I don't take it very seriously. I don't really play it. I have a medium level version myself. Flame Imp is a old reward card, so that's it. Okay, so 3 candidates, the 3 takeaways. Gavo Firebolt, Spark Pixies, Phineas Rage. Everything else here is in some ways very respectable. But these are my 3s that I really feel you must have to have a high level success within the Fire Splinter today and moving forward. Okay? And man, this guy's a nice addition to like either a Grum or a Forgotten One, because this guy's going to hit first. He's probably going to soften them up, crack some of that shield, and let the big boy do their work. So I really think this is probably the lead. It is getting expensive. You're 300, 350 bucks. It used to be more though. So that's, it's in the reasonable territory. And frankly, all you need, if I didn't talk about this, all you need with your Phineas, here's the problem. I really like it all the way up at the Retaliate. Because Retaliate is, like I said with the Forgotten One, it's so valuable. It's so valuable. If you were just rocking it at the gold level, or this is silver, isn't it? No, it's not. Level 5 is gold. 5, 6, 7 is gold. Hang on, I gotta check that. Here, gotta confirm before we go any further. Gold does level 6. Gold does level 6 rare. Silver does level 4 rare. What does the summoner do? At level 4, yeah. So you're gonna level 4 and level 6 is okay. So in order to get the oppress, you need to be playing this card at the gold level, league level, and I think oppress is amazing. So I guess it depends what league you're at. I do think that this card lacks something if you're just rocking it around like let's say bronze. I think 3 attack in silver is great. It's just just fine with that number of hit points. It's a great secondary tank. Okay, so that's them for fire. Let's do blue. Okay, so this is tricky because these are really, really exceptional cards. I'm going to try and move quicker. I feel like I've covered a lot of these cards recently in a video. I talked about how with the water team I'm building lately. I talked about Demon Shark, Medallion Guardian. I talked about Angelic Mandarin. I think I might even mention River Nymph. All of them are exceptional. Kelp Initiate, I definitely talked about him. This card's amazing. All of those cards are almost must-have. Now, this one's getting expensive, and maybe you could do without it, but it has that triage, and it has... This one has a triage, this one has a triage, and they work together well. Angelic Mandarin has 7 hit points in triage. Kelp Initiate has 9 hit points in triage. So they end up supporting each other, whether you're putting them one in the sneak attack position and one in the snipe position. You're protecting your team and actually giving 2 triages so they can sustain one another. And then the cleanse is so great because, like I said in a previous video, poison, stun, all sort of status effects that can ruin your day can be wiped away by the Initiate. And the Initiate has 6 speed, which means that it's gonna usually erase any sort of status effects that landed at the end of the round before, for instance, your Demon Shark gets a chance to shoot. And therefore, you're actually gonna let your Demon Shark continue to do work even if it gets stunned, usually. Now, Demon Shark, let's start there. This card is a winner. This card is, for this price, is a carry card. It's an exceptional card, especially at the highest levels, but even at lower levels. I'm going to say at silver, it becomes very serious, where it has the enrage. And then into gold, when it gets the, potentially the retaliate, if you're using an epic summoner. Wow. Very, very powerful. And at the highest levels with the 4 melee, which turns into, I think, 6 with the enrage. Super strong card. The only limitation on the card like this is that that it has no magic resistance, no void, no void armor. As a result, it can get wiped pretty quick unless you contrive a situation where you put like a wave brood in the back line and that taunt is going to be a distraction. Okay, so this is a must-have card. I don't even need to debate that further. It's absolutely amazing, especially if you're building a modern deck and maybe you don't have an exceptional blue tank yet. This is it. This card is amazing. And it's a reasonable price. You're talking, what, 50 bucks? That's a really good price for an exceptional tank. Probably worth at least 100 bucks. Now, there is a ton of them, and so that's why the price is where the price is. But long term, this will be a card that everybody will wish they had more copies of long term. That's 4 years away or 2, I don't know. But this is a card I absolutely feel is a must-have. Renali Guardian is equally as good in a totally different way. With the tank heal and the repair, it works perfectly with the Demon Shark, giving it both types of heal and therefore more resistance from physical attack because the armor is being reconstructed, but also from magic because of the repair being there. And in some situations where your opponent uses a mix of magic and archery, this is so effective because you're actually doing more than, because one repair unit, one armor can stop 5 archery, right? And so this combination of heal and repair is just excellent. It's super important and super valuable. The biggest limitation with this is that it doesn't attack, and it's got relatively low hit points, but it's even got strengthen. And to be able to drop a strengthen on a card like a Demon Shark, which needs that extra hit point, so helpful. And then remember that strengthen going in conjunction with your other archeries and triage monsters, which is going to give those heals even more impact. Really great. Angelic Mandarin. I think this is a card that you need to have if you're in gold or diamond or champion. And I say that because you get into the 2 archery first of all. You get the triage, which is very, very helpful. Especially if you're going to do a taunt play. And like I said in my epic, Wave Brood is so important to the blue team these days. So you play Wave Brood in the back line, you've got Angelic Mandarin doing a triage, you've got Kelp Initiate doing a triage. You're going to let that Demon Shark do all kinds of work, and the Merdali Guardian supporting the Demon Shark is enough. And that by itself can usually defeat whoever's in front of it. Meanwhile, the Angelic Mandarin is chipping in a little bit, and the Kelp Initiate and Angelic Mandarin are holding each other up, holding up the Wave Brood, which is also chipping in a little bit. And at the highest levels, this thing is bringing silence to the game, which is going to contribute to the Wave Brood's success. So the whole team is it's literally a unit. It's Demon Shark, Merdali Guardian, Angelic Mandarin, Kelp Initiate, Wave Brood, and pick your 6th. I like Igor, which is an epic. I also like River Nymph for the speed and the cleanse and swiftness, or the swiftness, the cleanse, and the amplify. The amplify ends up being irrelevant in that build, but actually I think the Wave Brood has archery reflect at the highest level, so that's even interesting. So there you go. Those are must-haves, but we didn't talk about Wavesmith, and it is a must-have. Yes, it's gotten it's fallen from grace. It used to be $5-6, and now it's 16 cents. But the Protect and the Dispel are still valuable. If you don't have it, you should. For this price, it is an absolute must-have. I feel the same way about all of these cards and those I mentioned. Now, Ice Pixie is very strong, but it is getting a bit expensive. I think if you're getting it, the Shatter is really key, because that's going to change. Like, picture you drop a Shatter on the Demon Shark, and you're going to be the first to fire because if the speed is relatively high at 4. Then you're gonna crack that armor and then just open the way for your own victory, in my opinion. Ice Pixie is exceptional. I don't love the Giant Squid. This is an old card. Captain's Ghost is new and I like it, but it's just too slow. This is interesting, but no. Naga Windmaster old. As for the summoners, I think Kelly Frendel is so far above and beyond what Bortus is. Yeah, I think to me that's absolutely crystal clear. So, Demon Shark, yes. Merdali Guardian, Mandarin, and if you can afford it, Kelp Initiate. Those are the 4 that I see. And yes, Ice Pixie, number 5, but it's kind of optional, and I would only go up to Shatter if I felt. And Wavesmith, but only because it's really, well, not only because, but in large part because it's so cheap. Get it, get it, get it, get it. Okay. Earth. So, must have Earth Splinter monsters at the rare level. Slip Spawn, right out the gate. That taunt is so powerful and it works perfectly with Obsidian. It also happens to be one of the faster monsters, magic monsters on the Earth team today. Periton, of course, is super quick with the 5-6 speed, but Slip Spawn at 2 or 3 speed is actually surprisingly one of the faster. You've got 1, and these guys get faster, but not a lot faster. Most of them are 1 or 2 speed, and it's just inadequate. But the Slip Spawn at least is 3, which is good. Since Centauri Mage is another one that's it's one of the few that are quick at 4 speed, and the repair is actually really helpful, and the return fire is really helpful. So, Centauri Mage, this is number 2. Centauri Mage because 1, high hit points. 2, magic with good speed. 3, it's got the return fire, which is actually going to synergize with the Masilic Queen that has that amplify. And so, and the repair is great. So this card is actually my number 2, even though it is a bit more expensive. You're talking 250-ish, probably 250 to buy a max copy. I do think it's worth it. I really do. And so those 2, Parrington, yes. So cheap also. Man, these ones are just these are if you don't already own these, I'm you know, that's a surprise. If you've been in this game for 2 months and you don't own these yet, you should. And that's because Obsidian is great and these cards are amazing. So 3 magic monsters, I mean, I honestly could stop there, but Obsidian is the play. Eastwood is fine, you know, but look at the price differential. I mean, Eastwood's more expensive. I mean, this is a good deal for Eastwood, but I really feel Obsidian's the play. This Obsidian is a bit cheaper, 370 versus 390. Yeah. So Obsidian, and get your magic monsters in order. Look for fast ones. These are great, especially if you can afford it. Chimera Prince is one of the best tank healers because it has that triage, and it's going to work really well with your Obsidian. It's just probably too expensive for most people, and I would be reluctant to buy it for $500-600. So that's where we're at. Mushroom Seer is great, but look at this price, and you need 115 copies to get your map. So that's a pass. I mean, maybe you get one of them because you're not going to have it other. Oh, that's an old card. My bad. Yeah, that's an old card. I mean, these archery ones are fine, but I don't like them. Like, this one I see a lot when in conjunction with Spirit of the Forest, which is also a sniper, and it can be like a sniper focused green team. But unless you're playing in the wild, you're not going to have Spirit of the Forest, and therefore, I don't know, I would leave Child of the Forest alone. Bernard Seedsmith, no thanks. Goblin Tower, no thanks. My Silic Infantry is interesting for those reverse rule sets, reverse speed rule sets. I really like it for, you know, Giant Killer and Rage Shield. This thing could destroy a Grum if it was reverse rule set. Well, I mean, they're both slow anyways. This thing would look at with a shield, with the Giant Killer, going to do, because, you know, in some cases you're going to be dealing with that last big Grum. Thing's going to be doubling up, and then in Rage, it could be doing, like, let's say 8, you could be doing 16 damage per hit, and it's under the 10 mana, so it's not going to be Giant Killed itself. Yeah, and 10 or more mana. So Mycelic Infantry, Parrington, Slip Spawn, Centauri Mage, and Obsidian. And then skip the rest, even though some of them are really good. Like these are old reward cards, are really, really good. Chimer Prince is great, but too expensive. Moving on. From the life team. Let's do summoners first. I mean, Lorna Shine's really, really special, but that's just too expensive. And the price differential, I mean, I just can't justify it, even though she's great. So General Sloan is the cheapest summoner in the game. Get a max copy. Get whatever copy that you dream to play this game at. This should be your first goal if you're just getting started, because it's the most affordable summoner in the game, and it actually makes it reasonable that you could have a really high level Splinter, one ace Splinter that's going to allow you to achieve gold, diamond, champion level success. It begins with one summoner, one team that's your ace, and let it be this guy. Because if you spend $2.70 per BCX, you're talking probably $300 to get a max copy of them. And then you're going to have $100 left over or $200 left over that you could put towards cards because you saved, 25 to 35% on the cost of your summoner. That's how cheap this guy is compared to the other summoners out there. And so with that in mind, General Sloan is a must-have. And I don't love this archery team, but it doesn't matter because it's really your best summoner is your highest level summoner. That's almost always the case. And of course, if you have a variety of options, great. That phrasing, by the way, comes from a new Time and Attention member, version 1, who has his own channel. You should go check him out. I love his content. And he said that on a recent video. He said your best summoner is your highest level summoner, and it's a really simple and straightforward way of unpacking what I've always said, which is that you don't want to get focused on having the most overpowered. Most of you can't afford Kitty, most of you can't afford Yoden, but what if you can put out a level 8 General Sloan? That's going to be more competitive than like a level 4 Lorna Shine. Like, honestly, if you're buying Lorna Shine now, you're going to be spending, look at this, level 6, $750, and that's a deal. That's a deal. Or you're going to be getting this guy for probably at the same level, or even half the price for a max copy. That's the discount you're dealing with. So, Sloan. With that in mind, Pellicor Arbalist is a very good choice with the double strike. Again, like I mentioned before in many videos, the white team is quite slow. 3 speed is a little bit lacking, and then the low hit points is a problem. But you just need to contrive. You need to bring the slow, and you need to bring some, like the Time Mage, bring some slow to slow down your enemy, bring some swiftness to improve your own speed. So cheap. Time Mage is a must-have. First of all, this price is really, really great. You're talking like probably $25 for max copy, and it's got 3 magic damage for 4 mana and a decent amount of hit points with Rust, which is, like we've pointed out so many times before, is really, really helpful as a contribution to your team. Because if you're dropping archery, if you're dropping magic monsters, melee monsters, that Rust is going to take away some of that armor, making your enemy more vulnerable. And the slow is going to work in conjunction with what we just talked about, allowing these slower archery units. This is actually an amazing little one too. This is a card that I've been sleeping on personally, and I think you guys must have. Celestial Harpy is really good, and I've seen a lot of great melee plays lately with the white team. Look at this 2 mana cost monster at the highest levels, bringing in its own 2 melee damage. 3 strikes, great, flying an opportunity. It's an interesting play, especially for 20 cents. Crystal Smith is so cheap, it's shocking. Like, this card's amazing with the tank heal and the archery and a decent amount of speed, and it works with Sloan. So Crystal Smith, yes. Hard, yes. Time Mage, yes. Arbalist, yes. Harpy is a maybe, depends on what your budget is. It's super cheap, but I'm trying to focus on building. In my mind now, I'm like, okay, if we did Sloan and we did this sort of thing, we can start to build a team. And then I would want to get like my tank in order. So what would we do there? I don't love Shield Bearer at that price. I probably have to go outside of the rares into the epics or the legendaries. Yeah, there's some good tanks in here. Polycore Conjurer, Chaos Knight, Warrior of Peace maybe, Chain Spinner. So there's some good common level tanks, but we'll cover that another time. So from the white team, and this is an old reward card now. Yeah, that's going to be in the wild format. I like a lot of these other ones. I like the Shield Bearer, just too expensive. I like the the Sheriff, but too expensive. Luminous Eagle is okay. Temple Priest is actually really great DPS. 4 magic at the highest levels for 5 mana is great. Again, like I've said so many times, slow. Don't love it. This spell is great though. So, must have Crystal Smith, must have Time Mage, must have Arbalist, and the Sloan. Moving on. Death. Soul Strangler does 4 archery damage at the highest levels with the poison and a good amount of speed and a decent amount of hit points. Kind of small, but look, it's only a 3 mana cost monster, so that's crazy and it's a must buy. Bonesmith for this price is crazy. Dispel, Poison, Life Leech. This is a card you're going to drop in those equalizer matches where everybody has the same number of hit points. He's going to come out of the gate with 10 and he's going to Life Leech himself up to 25 hit points. I've seen it happen. He's great. For 4 mana, yes please. I could do without Dampier Stalker. He's not bad. I am just saying he's not in the same conversation. Life Sapper, again with the Life Leech. Yes, for sure. Max copy, go. Redemption, in particular too, the Death Splinter has that redemption play where you double or triple weaken your opponent and then you drop a couple redemptions and you can kill them with that. It's pretty cheese, but it works. So this is an absolute must-have, and that's why the price is starting to tick up. It was closer to the Bonesmith price point. Definitely a strong. So I'm already at 3, and we're just looking at the top row. Dark Astronomer is very good because it is blind at the highest levels, and Shatter is always great, but blind is why it works so well with the death team that I usually put on the field, which is speed focused. So this is a strong consideration. Dark Ferryman, good, but it's probably a no. Because you know we're talking about some heavy hitters here, so I'm gonna say Dark Ferryman, even though it's a great card, it's a no for me. I have it, I love it. It's just not my must-have call for today. First Windiku. This card is a strong tank. If you're playing at the highest levels at Diamond or Champion, this will be a card that will be in regular circulation. It will be part of the meta moving forward. It's not going to compete with like a Lord of Darkness. It's not going to compete with some of the best tanks in the game, like of all time. But it's a very good entry. It's an excellent tank with good hit points. Thorn, heal, even the slow is a nice contribution. It's a great card, and you can amp up that thorn damage so easily these days. And yes, it's a very good card for this price. I'm gonna say that's a strong buy at 150 bucks. First Windiku, yes. Bonesmith, Strangler, Life Sapper. Grim Reaper's an interesting one because of the Affliction and the Oppress and the Piercing. That combo makes it actually very strong in terms of how much damage it's outputting. The Oppress with the 4, the Piercing, that's a great, powerful archery monster. And the Affliction is no joke because so often you end up losing because your opponent's tank just heals and heals. Well, not with this guy. Here's the problem. I don't love archery units that have very little hit points. They get opportunity sniped. They get sneak attack because you put them in the back or toward the back. It's a niche monster. I like it, but it's not an everyday thing. Bone Column is good. Especially, yeah, I mean, Void is great. Repair is great. Knockout's great. And There isn't, black doesn't have the same, now that we're moving into modern and wild, black doesn't have the same level of caliber of primary tanks. So Bone Golem gets a lot more love from me than he would have when I could use Lord of Darkness, when I could have used Pegasus, when I could have used Haunted Spirit. So it's a great card and it's a reasonable price. But I think if it's between Windiku and Bone Golem, you got to go Windiku. It's, you know, it's half the price. I think you got to go Windiku. So it's a good card, but only really if you got a big budget and you've already got a number of these cards. If you've already got Windiku, then Bone Golem's a nice addition. I didn't talk about summoners this time. I'm gonna say I actually really like Thaddeus Brood because of the weekend play and the price point. He happens to be, I think, the second cheapest summoner in the game, and because of the heart reduction of your opponent, you can drop like a triple weaken, which, like I said earlier, you triple weaken, you drop a redemption, you're gonna take out your opponent. At least a couple of them. It can be very, very deadly. So that's it. Ouster is great, but too expensive. So in summary, Bonesmith, Strangler, Sapper, Windiku, Thaddeus. On to Dragon. With the Dragon, the modern, old, modern. Okay, so I have a Drake of Arnak. Feel like that price point is a pass. You know what I mean? I'm gonna just get, for that price point, I'm just gonna go get either an epic Kretch, which is better and cheaper, because with a Kretch you only need 46 copies. With this one you need 115 copies. So I'm going Kretch, or I'm going Quicks, where you only need 11 copies and it's $30 per copy. This, I don't really, yes, +1 armor is nice, but the amount of rust that's out there that'll just erase that anyways is kind of significant. I don't see why this price is so high. I'm a pass. Bright and Bloom is interesting for those niche plays where you have Earthquake and you want to drop light on, you know, all your crazy non-flying monsters. But that's too expensive. I mean, you'd have to, before I would recommend that, you'd have to have, say, 10 grand burning a hole in your pocket. And I'd say buy all the monsters you don't have. That's where that's not how I play this game. I'm a strong pass. Twilight Basilisk is so cheap, and it's got the stun, and it's got the reach, and it's got a good amount of DPS, 3 and 2 at the higher levels. This is a very good reach monster, especially Little Leagues. Very good. The speed is great, and that stun is going to let you unlock those knockout damages on monsters such as we mentioned with the Scavo Firebolt Fire Team earlier. Naga Assassin, again, super cheap and definitely a must-have. So we're going Twilight Basilisk, Naga Assassin, and I might say pass on the Gloridax, but here's the thing: it's really, really cheap actually. Like, you're talking $80 for a old reward card. There's 40 collection power per card versus the 20 in the Basilisk. I mean, just have a look at it and see if it fits in your roster. You know, the flying, the shield, got a good amount of armor and hit points, and the oppress makes it interesting, but it's not one of my must-haves. It's interesting, but it's not. There you go. Naga and Basilisk. And lastly, neutrals. From the neutral side of things, depends which summoners you're rocking. If you've got Obsidian, you're going to want to focus on Spellsmith. You're going to want to focus on even the Mystic, which has the silence, which is so good at the silver level. You can bring a silence from a monster for 4 mana. It's so amazing, especially now that we have Obsidian in the modern, we're gonna have Alrek in the wild. This is gonna have utility at both, and you're not gonna regret spending, let's say, $100 on this monster, as long as you're in this game for the long haul. That's an old reward. I'm gonna pass on the Goblin Chariot. Tower Griffin is a consideration for me because it's got that protect, which I use a lot. Flying, I use this one a lot. Good amount of hit points, decent archery, and then imagine this thing with Sloan. I do that quite a bit. This brings up the speed of a Sloan team, and it can really help balance that. So Tower Griffin is a strong maybe. Now, it's not exactly cheap, and I would want it all the way up here. So we're talking, you know, 350 bucks. Maybe that's too rich for you. Probably want, oh, that's an old. So this one, 100 bucks, 350 for that one. And then I'm going to say probably Spellsmith and Spellsmith has a lot going for it. The Dispel, the Amplify. Part of that redemption is part of what we talked about with the Death team, doing like a double redemption. You can your enemy. This is a must-have. Spellsmith. The question is, are you rocking Sloan? Because the Zenith Archer with the 2 archery damage and look how cheap it is, 15 cents. 2 archery becomes 3 archery. And you can get it in gold at that damage point. And 3-4 speed is, again, it's going to help your Sloan situation. So Zenith Archer, yes, especially in particular if you have a Sloan. And you should have a Sloan because it's the cheapest summoner in the game. Spellsmith, yes, especially if you have an Obsidian, and you should have an Obsidian because she's really, really powerful. And as we get more magic monsters that are quicker, you're going to find that Obsidian becomes even more of a carry summoner. I think right now she languishes a little, she struggles because she has a lot of magic monsters that are a bit slow. But you're going to find new monsters come out and they're quicker than that. They have 5, they have 6 speed, where there's going to be different slow opportunities or swiftness. Suddenly, I think you're going to Obsidian, the price is going to go crazy and you're going to wish you had more copies. So, Spellsmith, yes. Zenith Archer, yes. No to the Gargoyle Devil, even though it's really cheap. I just don't like its kit. Too few hit points. Death Blow, who cares? No thanks. Zenith Monk, probably. Again, like I've said before with Windaku and stuff like this is a card I think we're all going to... you know, it's got the self-heal. It's got a decent amount of hit points. It's got Void and Magic Reflect. And, you know, with the Amplify that's out there, Magic Reflect becomes really nasty. And I think this is a card that should be way more than 62 cents. I think, you know, $1 easy and even like $2-3 per BCX is possible in the long run. So let's go these 4. Archer, Spellsmith, Monk, and Griffin. And I know Griffin's a bit expensive. So take that with a grain of salt, especially. But if you're rocking a Sloan team and you can afford it, this is a strong card, and I use mine regularly. Okay, guys, thanks so much for your time and attention. Have an amazing night. God bless.